what's left of your career is going to be difficult if you choose not to change.
Welcome to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes, and today, once again, we are with Joric McLean. Joric, as you know, if you watch Over 50 TV, you know Joric is our HR expert. Joric has decades of experience as an HR manager. And whenever we have a question or two or three, who do I go to? I go to Joric McLean. And Joric, welcome to Over 50 TV.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm glad to be back here.
I'm glad to have you, Joric. Glad to have you with us today. Joric, I've got some questions that viewers have submitted. And if you do not mind, I'd like to ask you the questions so that I can get back to our viewers. And these questions are usually always about an issue that they have with HR or an issue they have with interviewing. And I want to say this, for any viewer who watches our video, who submits a question to Joric, what I'll do is I'll send you a $10 certificate. I'll send it via email so you can go to Starbucks. Joric and I want to buy you a cup of coffee.
Yes, indeed.
So, Joric, let's start with the first question. This question is from Steve Katz. And Steve responded to a video that we published. The video was, if you are over 50, watch this video before you exaggerate on your resume. And here's what Steve mentioned, Steve's comment, and he asks the question. He says, is omitting a decade or two from your resume considered lying? He says, I'd like to think that overstating your experience would be far worse than understating it. What say you?
I wouldn't state anything other than your experience on your resume. And that's not giving Steve the answer he's looking for, but I wouldn't embellish. I also wouldn't understate, because it's a lottery pick just for you to get that resume into someone's hands other than an applicant tracking system to actually, and you probably have to have some breadth of your experience. So you don't want to hold back a decade or 20 years because that might be the line or two or bullet point that gets you into the interview. Yeah. I would say what you have is what you have. You are who you are. We don't have the Benjamin Button complex where we can just become a child or go the other way. Also, things like LinkedIn. Most people have a LinkedIn profile, and many people, I know from my own experience, match that up to a resume. And if there's questions or there's issues, what I would say that might help him answer his question in a way without lying or embellishing or I'll say omitting dates. I've seen more resumes come up where people have given where they've worked, but they haven't given the time period. They've just given me their, let's say, college work experience, and then I have to kind of decide based upon that whether they're there. Now, I will say most applicant tracking systems require dates attached to things so that sometimes you can't even get your resume involved. I'd say it's a bad idea to leave stuff out and to understate. Because if anything, probably I would say, I understand where he's coming from. More people are embellishing just to get in the door than understating. Yeah. But I would say you have to be who you are. And if you have 30 years of experience, I think you should show that. And yes, I understand that there's bias against older people, but you have to give yourself some credit and some faith that someone's going to look at that as a good thing to get you in the door, not as a bad thing. I've seen people whittle their resume down or CV to try to cut out certain things, but to cut out 10 to 20 years of time doesn't make sense to me, because that's the 10 to 20 years of, that's why I want to hire you, not why you want to try to get in the door because you don't have the experience. That's what I can hire a 22-year-old for.
Yeah, that's a great point, George. But you also mentioned too that you're seeing more resumes come in without dates on it. So there's really no reason not to put it on there if there could be a benefit, if there's a direct tie to that position. So listen, I've got another question for you here, George. And this was a question that I received after we published this video, how companies get rid of older workers. And I don't know if I'm saying this right or not. It's Quarty Typo says this: if you have someplace better to work, if you don't, then suck it up. Joric, if you are at a company and you're being treated poorly, what the heck? Why do I want to suck it up? Don't I want to leave?
I would say you want to leave unless you feel like, for whatever reason, your skills you're not going to be able to go someplace else and do a similar job, or your pay is such that you don't think you can get paid someplace else, then there are probably people that do, suck it up, even if they're being treated poorly. I would say in this day and age, because there's more things that we're all seeing, especially in the US, that there's more work available to people of all ages,
Yeah.
that if you feel like you're not getting a fair shake where you're working, you can go work someplace else. And I don't believe that you're going to take that much of a pay cut. And in fact, in most places, it's going to be a linear move. You're not going to make a lot, but you're not going to lose a lot to go someplace, make a lateral move someplace else. I wouldn't do it in this day and age. And especially if you're older, if you're over 50, my gosh, you put in 20, 30 years of working, and you might have had to work for terrible bosses and just bad companies. This is a point in life where you should be able to go do something else for whatever time's left before retirement and not have to deal with that. But I do get his point. I've because of pay, in one place, I bit my tongue and I sucked it up, even though I didn't like it going to work every day. I liked the paycheck every 2 weeks. So that was my trade-off there.
Yeah, no, I get that, Joric. I guess I just have a hard time a lot of times when I see an older worker who has to suck it up, when I much rather just say, to the employer, get lost. Hey, I've got another question here for you, Joric. And this question was off of the video that we did, interviewing after 50, how to make yourself desirable. And here is the comment that I got from S Hancock. And Mr. Hancock or Mrs. Hancock says, I do not have to make excuses that I've gotten older, but I'm employed and I'm not old and slow. I'm 59 and still savvy. And no, I don't change. Younger people, bosses out there, you change your attitude to older candidates. Joric, the reality is some of these companies with younger bosses, they don't care. So if you're saying, if this Mr. or Mrs. Hancock is saying, I don't want to change, what do you say?
I would say that would be what's left of your career is going to be difficult if you choose not to change. But I would argue, I think that person mentioned that they're in their late 50s.
Yeah, 59.
Okay, 59. I'm going to bet that person is a different person at 59 than they were at 49, 39, and 29. And they probably had to learn new skills, build relationships with people, learn new things or different processes at whatever they're doing, company making widgets. So I would say that although they may not realize that they've changed, they've had to change. They may mean it, well, I don't have to go to school to get a degree. I don't have to go to a technical class for something. Maybe that's how they mean it. But my guess is they've changed throughout their career. They may just not realize that they've changed in maybe a traditional sense, but they've had to change, because my guess is they couldn't have made it to 59 in their job without having to do some sort of change, learning a new skill, working with employees and working with different people. So they've had to, although they may be frustrated right now, they've had to.
Yeah. I think frustrated is an understatement when I read this person's comment, because it seems like they're just angry, and their anger, what I see with this person, it just reflects all the dozens and actually hundreds of other comments I get. People are angry when they're treated poorly by a younger boss or a younger coworker.
Yeah, and it's something that it's disappointing to me, because so based upon age, that would be someone that would be a younger baby boomer, older Gen X generation that you have. So where I'm going with that is it's peers that are treating them, meaning business owners that are probably in their 60s. It's older workforce that they may have some issues with. But the difficulty is, we've hit it on many videos. Many people who are in their 50s and 60s, so over 50, are working more and more with people in their 20s and 30s. And that hasn't always been the case. Baby boomers, that workforce has ruled the roost for 40, 50 years of working. And now that's changing as more of them are retiring. Now you're getting newbies that are 22, 25, 27 that are the boss. And now you've lived twice as long as that boss has been alive, and the boss is telling you what to do. I get the frustration. I don't think that there's necessarily an answer to that, But I do think I would have that person look in the mirror and go, hey, you have changed. Give yourself credit for
Yeah,
being able to
yeah.
be savvy. If you're savvy, that means you are learning. You may just not be learning because you maybe don't have a degree. You may be thinking of it in a different way, but you are learning. You are a part of the workforce. Keep after it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got to say, I agree with what Hancock says, and I see I can feel the anger coming right out of that comment.
Yeah,
Hey, I've got one more for you, Jorg.
sure.
I did a video. We did a video. 10 things to never say in an interview. Tips from a hiring manager. That was the video. And we got a response from, and I don't know if I'm going to even say this right, almost like it's NY Siegel or Siegel. I almost want to say it's New York Siegel, but they want to know this, and this is what this person says, and I'm assuming it's a woman based on some of the comment here. It says, many times I've gone into interviews not knowing if it's, meaning the pay, gone into interviews not knowing if the pay is in my range. I never ask. I have been asked, however, how much am I looking for? And she says, I hate that. I've responded with, well, what is the range you're considering for this position? Any advice, Jorick, any advice on how to handle that, when it comes to answering the question about pay?
Yeah. So the first thing I would answer is based upon what state. So let's say it's New York. There are more states now, starting in 2020 and moving forward, even 2022, that you have to post pay ranges in jobs. So that at least gives you some assessment of what you're looking at. Not all, it's only a handful of states. More states will be on board with that. More companies are posting salary ranges. Now, 20 to 150, that is one heck of a range there. That I've never seen a pay range that's been that disparate. That's crazy. But what I would do is I do like how she's answering the question with a question, almost like Socrates, meaning I'm asking, well, how much are you willing to pay? And she's, well, what's the pay range? I think that's the first best question that she can ask. I would also try to contact during the interview process, before she gets in that interview, people on LinkedIn, people that she might find are hiring managers, people that work for the company, and they don't know that she's looking to get a job, but I would try to ask them, what's the pay for this type of role? There's Glassdoor, there's Indeed, there's more companies that are offering pay ranges that give you salary and wage ranges for companies nationally and internationally. So you can find that data without having to pay for it. I would say look at some of the connections and increase your connections and connect with people in the company you want to work for, and just ask them flat out, hey, you're doing this role. I see $130,000 wage range, which I've never seen in my life. What's your pay? So then that way they know, oh, the pay is going to be 60 grand or the pay is going to be 120. So if they are cornered in a meeting where they have to start throwing out numbers, they at least know, okay, I should start at 120 and go to 130, not I'm going to 60. And the hiring manager's going, yes, I saved 50,000 because they should be paid 100,000. That's a tricky one because what she's doing is correct. She's putting it back on the business to asking them for a number and a range, which they should be giving. But that's a wild range. I think if I were in that position, I would go on LinkedIn. I would connect with anybody that has a similar role or the same role in that company. Whoever connects, I would start building a relationship and asking questions about pay and seeing if I can get a better answer.
Yeah, no, Jork, I agree with you. And I did, I'm going to put it up on the screen so our viewers can see it. But when she says my field could be from 20,000 to 150,000, yeah, I've never seen that in any position that I've ever hired, where the range there's that much difference.
I've never, the only thing that I could think of is it would be a sales role where you're looking at, let's say, a base or a draw plus commission, and there's the potential to make that kind of money. But outside of that, I've never seen anything that's been a straight up. It's been, here's what the base is for sales, and then here's the potential commission opportunity. So then someone going into a sales job knows, okay, here's what I'm going to get as my bread and butter, and here's my potential to earn above that. But still with that, that's a wide range. I would look for jobs, frankly, that have a more succinct, more tight wage range or salary range. So that way, at least you're within, let's say, 20 to 30,000. So you know the minimum and maximum, not $130,000 different. There's find a job that's got a narrow range, because to me that something's wrong there. I almost think that that sounds like a typo on either her end or on the business's end. That seems a little outlandish to me.
Yeah, yeah, I see the same thing, Joric. And when I saw that, another thing I thought, which you brought up already, was the sales position. Well, Joric, I want to thank you once again for being with us and answering our viewer questions. And I want to remind the viewer, if you send a question in and Joric answers your question, if Joric does answer your question, Joric and I will take you to coffee. We'll take you to coffee with a certificate that I will email to you. It'll be good for $10 at Starbucks. Well, Joric, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate your being with us today, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Hey, I'm happy to help, and I'm looking forward to getting more questions.